Everything kicks off at Zhangzhou High School in Lingnan, right around late afternoon. Through the classroom window, you can see students chatting while one of them is sound asleep at his desk. Suddenly, the young man snaps awake in a panic. He slams his desk and jumps up screaming that he refuses to accept this, completely startling all his classmates. Totally disoriented, the young man looks around and asks himself if he somehow ended up in the underworld. Hearing such a bizarre outburst, the other students in the room start laughing out loud at him. One of them snickers, asking why trash like Chin Fan is spazzing out, commenting that he's nothing more than a stray dog abandoned by his own family. Chin Fan stares at his own hands, trying to figure out if he's actually alive, remembering clearly being torn to pieces. He notices the insults carved into his desk, calling him garbage, a coward, a loser, and an outcast. He realizes he has somehow traveled back 500 years in time, straight to the most hopeless period of his entire life. He recalls his freshman year of high school, when his family was cast out and abandoned by the Qin clan. Back then, his classmates Wang Zijun and Zhou Shuiman mocked him, saying it was pathetic to watch a young master fall so far. After some time, his parents managed to start over from scratch, building a business that was doing pretty well. But they ended up getting set up by his second uncle and were shipped off straight to prison. In the end, his parents passed away full of resentment behind bars, leaving the young man completely heartbroken. To make matters worse, the ruthless Du family showed up and broke both of his legs, leaving him unable to walk. He even dragged his girlfriend, Yinuo, into the mess, which ultimately led to the young girl falling from a building and losing her life. In the middle of a heavy downpour, Chin Fan found himself completely broken and hopeless out on the street. Right as he was on the brink of giving up, his master finally appeared to save him. The elder told him he was chosen by the heavenly path itself to walk a brand new journey. Chin Fan followed him into the world of cultivation, and after 100 years of relentless effort, he became the ultimate sacred emperor of his era. At that point, he was just one final lightning tribulation away from ascending to full immortality. The young man endured intense suffering from the overwhelming power of the lightning striking down upon him. He ended up losing to an inner demon born from his hatred, but the tribulation didn't destroy him. Instead, it granted him rebirth. With a dark smile spreading across his face, he lets out a quiet chuckle as he realizes what just happened. Chin Fan breaks into a loud laugh, celebrating that the heavens decided not to let him fall, granting him a second chance. A classmate remarks that the guy has lost his mind completely, looking like a mad dog ready to bite someone. A green-haired student stands up and boasts that he's going to slap him around to wake him up for good. Chin Fan thinks to himself that he won't let a single regret or grudge from his past slide this time around. Out of nowhere, he lands a devastating strike on his desk, splitting the wooden table right down the middle. He wonders if the Qin clan, his uncle, or the Du family could ever imagine that he'd get the chance to start all over again. The green-haired bully backs off in fear, asking himself what on earth is wrong with that kid. Even though his current body is weak and running low on spiritual energy, the Prota knows it's more than enough to kick off his revenge. In the middle of all that chaos in the classroom, a harsh voice booms out, ordering everyone to shut their mouths. The principal walks in furious, asking what all the noise is about and complaining that they aren't behaving like proper students. The green-haired kid immediately points at the Prota, telling the principal that his classmate went crazy and started shouting in the room. The principal agrees, stating that besides looking like a complete mess, the Prota's behavior is awful and completely out of line. The Prota remembers how the teachers back then used to humiliate him when he was at his lowest, with this principal being the cruelest of all. The principal orders him to step out into the hallway, while the Prota recalls a dark secret he once uncovered about the man. With a sarcastic smirk, the young man says the principal bought his degree, asking if having an elementary school education makes him feel superior. The other students are utterly shocked, seeing the Prota have the nerve to call out the principal so directly. Absolutely enraged by the accusation, the principal yells, asking if the kid has any idea who he's talking to. The Prota knows full well that the man took bribes to expel poor students while covering for the bullies. He keeps calling the principal out for stealing lesson plans from other teachers because he couldn't even understand the test questions himself. In his past life, the young man had no choice but to swallow that injustice, but now he stares the man down without an ounce of fear. The principal screams that he's suspending him for 1 week so he can go home and think about his rebellious attitude. The Prota accepts the punishment calmly, promising himself that he'll collect every single old debt double-fold. The principal gets even angrier seeing the young man smiling, swearing he won't let this humiliation slide. He plans to make the kid's parents kneel down before everyone again to beg for him to stay in school. Hearing that disrespectful mention of his parents, the prota turns around with a deadly glare, asking if he actually dares to insult his family. The prota then socks the jerk right in the face to shut him up for good. He turns to the classroom and orders everyone to pay close attention to what he has to say from that moment on. The young man coldly warns that anyone who dares to cross his path will suffer the exact same tragic fate as that man. On the floor, the principal clutches his swollen face, stuttering that the kid had the nerve to lay a hand on him and that he's getting expelled right now. The prota replies that the man should consider himself lucky, since his good manners were the only reason he got off with just a single slap. The principal swallows hard and shakes in fear, unable to utter another word after that terrifying threat. The prota knows he doesn't have enough power yet, and that the most important thing right now is to get stronger to handle an urgent situation at home. Half an hour later, the prota arrives at the outskirts where his family currently lives. Walking down the narrow alleys, he gets emotional realizing he actually made it back to this place after 500 years. He recalls that this humble property left behind by his grandmother was the only saving grace that kept his family afloat in the past. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out his nickname, leaving him startled and frozen in place for a moment. His father shows up pushing a bicycle and asks in confusion why his son is back early, since he should be in class. With tears welling up in his eyes, the prota remembers that in his past life, he never got to see his parents one last time before they were gone. Concerned seeing their son crying, his parents ask if something happened at school or if someone is picking on him. He gives them both a tight hug and says everything is fine, simply confessing that he missed them deeply. His parents can't wrap their heads around his sudden reaction, finding his behavior quite unusual. His dad says a man needs to stay strong, and the prota agrees, promising he will become stronger than anyone else. He makes a firm resolve in his heart that he will do whatever it takes to protect his parents in this new life. As they chat happily, a sleek white luxury car suddenly pulls up right beside their house. A voice from inside the car comments that it's perfect to catch the whole family together, catching the prota's attention. The man stepping out of the vehicle is Zhou Yihang, the president of the Zhou Group, whom the young man recognizes as a major traitor from his past. The prota's father greets him in surprise, completely unaware that this two-faced man helped his second uncle ruin their family. From inside the luxury ride, a girl complains to her father, telling him not to waste time talking to those nobodies. This young girl is Zhou Shuiman, the prota's fiancé, who sneers that she didn't even want to lay eyes on a guy she considers beneath her. The prota simply watches the scene in silence with an ice-cold look, showing no immediate reaction. She points her finger and states she only came to break off their engagement since they belong to two completely different worlds now. The young man thinks to himself that she's right about them living in different worlds, but that she hasn't realized who is actually on top yet. He responds with heavy sarcasm that he rejects her pompous attitude, knowing full well that his grand revenge against all of them is just getting started. Offended by his response, the girl asks if a street toad like him really thought he had a shot with a swan like her. The prota's mother gets upset and reminds her that it was the Zhou family themselves who desperately begged for that engagement back in the day. Zhou Yihang pretends to scold his daughter's manners, but she fires back saying they aren't even part of the powerful Qin family anymore. The prota steps in and reminds everyone that the person who actually helped their family grow in the past was his own father. He throws it right back in their faces that his dad was the one who paid for their education and provided the initial capital for their company to exist. His mother tries to cool things down, while the businessman admits to the debt of gratitude, but insists he has to think about his daughter's future. The girl shouts that she'll pay $10 million to tear up the contract, but her father fake scolds her to keep quiet. The prota questions if her hand is really worth so little, recalling how, in his past life, the businessman pulled a scam on his parents right after getting the contract back. Annoyed by his words, the girl tells him not to push his luck, asking if he really thinks that paper works as leverage over them. She rants, calling the prota a pathetic loser that anyone can walk all over, questioning what makes him think he's worthy of her. Before she can keep screaming, the prota steps forward and grips her hand with crushing strength. With a frightening glare, he warns that if his parents weren't standing right there, neither of them would be walking away alive today. She groans in pain, feeling the boy's powerful grip, frantically asking herself how he managed to get so strong out of nowhere. The young man slams her onto the dirty pavement without an ounce of pity, brutally ordering both of them to beat it immediately. The prota warns that if word gets out about their ungratefulness, their company will be in serious trouble, while the father helps his daughter up from the dirt. The girl calls him a scumbag, while her father tries to plead with the prota's parents for everyone to sit down and talk things out calmly. He replies that he'll only talk if the girl bows down 100 times at his doorstep to ask for forgiveness, swearing to destroy their family personally. The prota guides his parents back inside the house, asking them to simply trust him completely from here on out. The girl screams in a fit of rage that she wants to ruin the guy, but her father decides the best move is to fall back for now. The businessman breaks out in a nervous sweat seeing his plan derailed, unable to comprehend how that timid kid changed so drastically. Jo Shueman complains that they can't just leave things like this, but her father tells her to relax because he has plenty of schemes lined up to handle it. The man thinks the kid is just bluffing because of the engagement contract, swearing he will make him regret threatening him. Inside the luxury car, the businessman swears that family's end will be just as miserable as the Chin clan desires, ordering the driver to step on it. The vehicle speeds off down the street, leaving a cloud of dust behind as it pulls away. Watching through the window, the prota knows the Joe family will do whatever it takes to get that contract back, concluding he needs to strike first. His mother gently touches his face and asks what happened, while his father agrees that he seems like a completely different person today. The young man answers softly that he simply realized a few important things and that he can't keep living like that anymore. He firmly promises that from now on, no one will ever push him around or bring them any harm again. His parents stare at him deeply, moved and astonished by the sudden maturity shown by their son. His mother hugs him in tears, saying they were the ones who failed to protect him, but assures him he will always be their greatest pride. The prota promises things are going to get better, swearing in his mind that he will rewrite the rules of this world himself. Later that night, under the dark sky, the young man quietly leaps out the window to make his move without anyone noticing. He moves swiftly through the city, thinking to himself that Earth's spiritual energy is way too thin and that he needs to find a proper spot to train. Atop a high-rise building under the full moon, he begins to sense the subtle flow of a spiritual current nearby. Spotting a lake in a nearby park, he realizes he got lucky and decides to head down there to tap into the gathered energy. He positions himself on a large rock in the middle of the lake and begins to focus, initiating the process of absorbing the energy. He smiles upon realizing how rich the energy in that lake is, knowing it will be more than enough to break through the first threshold of his training. Even though he lost his ancient powers and returned to square one, he knows this could actually be a massive opportunity. He remembers that his rapid progress in his previous life left his foundation shaky, which ultimately caused his downfall during the lightning tribulation. This time around, he vows to train the right way to build a flawless foundation and achieve immortality without fail. Time flies by, and the sun begins to rise on the horizon, while the young man remains motionless in deep meditation. A powerful wave of spiritual energy begins to swirl wildly around his body, creating a faint vortex in the air. Suddenly, his eyes flash with a brilliant golden hue, signaling that something extraordinary is taking place within him. He celebrates inwardly upon realizing that clearing his meridians ended up awakening the legendary golden eyes of his former legacy. The young man knows the ability is still too weak for offense, but the basic power to see through things will already be a massive help. Nearby, a gray-haired elderly man is practicing martial arts and catches sight of the young man's unusual presence at the lake. The senior, known as Elder Ye, admires seeing a young person meditating so early and strikes an imposing combat stance. The prota smiles at the old man and replies casually that he was just taking in the pure essence of the sun and moon. He politely takes his leave so as not to interrupt the senior's workout, thinking he needs to get back before his parents notice he's gone. The elderly man watches the young guy walk off with a slight smile, finding the kid's aura and attitude quite intriguing. A bodyguard in a suit steps up to the elder and asks if the kid's sudden appearance is suspicious and whether he should look into him. The elder dismisses the suspicion, saying he's just a boy playing around, and asks when his young granddaughter will be returning from her trip. He smiles contentedly, knowing his granddaughter will arrive soon, looking forward to spending some quality time with her. The prota opens the door to his humble home and calls out that he just got back from his morning walk. His mother asks what he was doing out so early, and the young man cheerfully replies he went for a run and picked up some breakfast on the way. Outside, a shady figure keeps an eye on the house from a distance using his phone, confirming if the target is indeed young Chin Fan. With a malicious grin, the criminal says the target is just a nobody kid and accepts the hit with open arms. On the other end of the line, Jo Shueman coldly commands not to end him just yet because she wants to watch him squirm and suffer very slowly. The Prota senses the suspicious movement outside, while his father asks anxiously about a tense phone call he received from the school. His mother tries to calm his dad down, but the Prota replies he socked the principal because he disrespected the family, expecting his fiancée to pay dearly for it. He reassures his parents with absolute confidence, guaranteeing that in less than 3 days, the principal will be knocking on their door to beg for forgiveness. The Prota's parents are left completely speechless, staring at their son in a mix of shock and utter disbelief. When his mother asks where he's off to now, the young man answers he'll use his suspension days to push his training hard on the streets. He says goodbye with a warm smile, stating that all of this is necessary to ensure he can protect his beloved family. Watching him walk away in the distance, his parents admit to each other that the young man has truly gone through an incredible, drastic change. Back on the rock by the lake, he concentrates and realizes that his memories of 500 years of training make his growth terrifyingly fast. He feels the flow of energy surging through his entire body, knowing it won't be long before he masters the techniques of immortality. The elderly man notices the young guy return to the exact same spot, while his loyal bodyguard senses something very bizarre happening in the air. The bodyguard anxiously warns that the surrounding air is shifting rapidly and that all the local energy seems to be getting drained at once. The elder's eyes widen as he starts suspecting what might actually be behind this weird phenomenon. They look toward the lake and freeze in absolute shock upon seeing that the young man is actually undergoing a real cultivation process. While the Prota trains focused on the rock, a mysterious figure wearing black footwear sneaks up from behind the bushes. The thug leader steps out from the foliage with his goons, laughing and boasting that someone paid top dollar to teach the kid a lesson. Sensing the intruders closing in, the Prota breaks his meditation and calmly opens his eyes to face them. The bully shouts that the young man's time is up, snickering that he hasn't had such an easy gig in a long time. Watching it all from afar, the bodyguard asks if the boss wants him to step in and wrap up the fight quickly. The elder tells him to hold off and just watch, wanting to see if the young man is truly as extraordinary as he appears. Irritated by the Prota's silence, the leader commands one of his goons to record everything so they can send the clip to whoever hired them. He charges forward holding a heavy wooden club high, yelling at the goon not to miss a single detail of the kid's screams of pain. However, the Prota blocks the wooden strike with absolute ease, leaving the attacker completely stunned by his lightning-fast reaction. The thug leader's eyes pop open as he lets out a gasp of pure shock, watching his violent attack get stopped effortlessly. In the blink of an eye, the Prota delivers a devastating kick that sends the big brute flying through the air with immense force. The Prota catches the wooden club he snatched from the man and tells the other goons they showed up at the perfect time. Since he just leveled up in his spiritual training, he thinks to himself that this is a great chance to get a light physical workout in. Sprawled on the ground, the boss yells furiously, ordering his men to cut the crap and jump the kid all at once. The goons rush forward armed toward the Prota, reminding each other that the bounty on his head is huge. With a spectacular acrobatic move, the young man connects a clean kick right to the chin of the first goon who charged in. He spins around instantly and delivers a precise strike with the club to the second opponent, dropping him onto the grass immediately. The gang leader watches the whole thing sweating bullets, completely unable to process how a teenage kid is pulling this off. The bodyguard admits he didn't expect the young man to possess such formidable combat skills, while the elder finds it all the more fascinating. Suddenly, a young female voice calls out for her grandfather, making the elder and his bodyguard turn around startled. The Prota tosses the club to the ground and complains that his opponents were way too weak, while the downed boss asks what kind of monster he is. The Prota looks down at him coldly and declares his name is Chin Fan, a powerful man whom no one will ever dare to mess with again. He recalls how, in his previous life, that exact same crew of criminals had been sent to finish him off. Back then, the young man had no way to defend himself and ended up getting brutally beaten by them in the middle of a deserted street. The thug leader had grabbed him by the hair violently, threatening him to stay far away and not even think about approaching the Joe family. The criminal had thrown a punch, warning that if he didn't comply, the next beating would be dealt to his parents. Back in the present, the bully breaks down crying desperately, begging for his life and revealing he was hired by the wealthy Joe family. The Prota demands to know where the money paid by his fiancée is, and the man quickly hands over his black card along with the pin. Holding the card, he realizes the Joe family wanted to silence him to bury the engagement, but warns that their scheme completely tanked. As he admires the gold card, an authoritative female voice calls out, ordering him to stop what he's doing right that instant. A silver-haired young woman marches up angrily, accusing him of fighting and mugging people in broad daylight inside the park. Spotting the girl, the gang leader plays the victim and cries for help, claiming all his buddies were brutally beaten. Having zero patience for the criminal's act, the prota lands a clean kick to the man's head to shut him up for good. The big guy faints instantly from the blow, falling completely knocked out onto the park grass. The silver-haired girl stands mouth agape, utterly shocked to see the guy knock the man out cold right in front of her without hesitating. He asks the goon holding the phone if he recorded everything and tells him to send a direct message to his fiancée, letting her know he's keeping the cash. Clutching the card, the prota promises to send her a payback gift and prepare a massive surprise for their next reunion. The silver-haired girl tries to grab him, shouting angrily that she already told him to quit his abusive behavior. She fires off quick strikes, claiming no thug is getting away, but the young man dodges with ease, telling her she's got it all wrong. Unwilling to hear excuses, the girl insists on fighting, yelling at him to go explain himself directly at the police station. She attempts a high kick, but the young man easily catches her leg, commenting that her moves are pretty to look at, but lack real power. He restrains her from behind, locking her arms firmly, leaving her furious and completely unable to break free from his grip. Seeing the girl pinned down, the bodyguard sprints forward at high speed, fiercely commanding him to let her go immediately. Both fire off heavy punches at the same time, causing their fists to collide with massive force in midair. Both the old man and the girl widen their eyes in utter shock upon seeing the kid match the elite bodyguard blow for blow. The prota cracks a confident smirk, realizing his opponent is a seasoned martial artist who decided to strike first. With his hand wrapped in glowing blue spiritual energy, the young man warns that it's totally fine if he starts taking the fight a bit more seriously now. The prota delivers a devastating punch that sends the suited bodyguard flying back, leaving the girl even more terrified. The bodyguard slides across the grass as he hits the ground hard, while the elder rushes over worriedly to check on his loyal ally. The young woman can't believe her eyes, remembering that the bodyguard was a top-tier elite operative famed in their region. She locks her eyes on the prota, wondering in absolute shock how an elite fighter could get laid out by a teenager with just one hit. The bodyguard explains that his bone was only dislocated because the young man showed mercy, while the elder apologizes for their rash behavior. The elder explains his granddaughter acted on impulse without knowing the kid was actually the one being jumped, leaving her stunned as the truth comes out. She asks if he wasn't robbing those men, and the prota laughs, replying he just beat up the goons sent by his fiancée and collected his cut. The girl tries to wrap her head around the situation, while the goons on the ground beg for mercy, confirming the rich Joe family forced them into it. The prota finally decides to release the girl's body, letting go of the hold with a smooth, quick movement. Realizing just how close her face was to the prota's, the silver-haired girl turns bright red and gets totally flustered. He whispers that it's rare to see someone with such a strong sense of justice, advising her to pick her targets better, making her stammer out an apology. The elder thanks the young man for his grace and asks for his name, hoping to find a future opportunity to make proper amends. The prota answers he's not interested in introductions, but decides to leave the elder with a word of warning before heading out. He advises the old man to get a full medical checkup at the hospital as soon as possible, right after taking his injured guard to get his arm treated. Hearing that unexpected medical advice, both the elder and his granddaughter are left puzzled and curious by the young man's statement. The girl wants to know the meaning behind the warning, but her grandfather tells her to just listen, concluding the kid must be a legendary grandmaster of transformation. She stands dumbfounded by the revelation, commenting that if the guy were at a basic combat level, he'd already be considered a rare prodigy. The elder agrees that he is extraordinary, viewing the encounter as a golden opportunity sent from above to bless the Ye clan. As he watches the young man walk away, the elder thinks to himself that this kid will become the most powerful force in the entire history of the nation. Elsewhere, a telephone is slammed violently against a wall mirror, shattering the glass into pieces. Joe Shueman stares at the broken mirror in sheer rage, unable to accept that useless Chin Fan possesses that kind of jaw-dropping skill. She begins to suspect her ex-fiancé's behavior, wondering if the kid was just playing dumb all this time. However, she quickly recovers her arrogant composure, scoffing that a little martial arts is nothing compared to her absolute political pull. She grabs her red lipstick to start getting ready, thinking dismissively about the surprise promised by the young man in the recorded message. As she applies her lipstick, she mutters that her father's trap is already set and that she can't wait to see the kid on his knees begging for mercy. The next morning, a huge buyout offer worth $6 million is presented for the acquisition of his family's property. His mother excitedly explains they want to buy the land and that they plan to use the cash stack to launch a business, while the prota thanks her for the food. He recalls that in his past life, the Joe family funded that payout, finding it way too fishy for relocation money to pop up right after they got kicked out of the clan. His father celebrates finally having the cash to restart their business, but the Prota asks his parents to leave that deal entirely in his hands. Hearing their son's unexpected request, both parents stop talking and look at the young man with expressions of complete surprise. He smiles and explains that 6 million is way too low for the land, promising he'll get the buyers to dish out a much better offer. Later, the scene shifts to the flashy entrance of a massive underground casino packed with high-end sports cars and fancy people. A rich young guy compliments Zhou Shuiman's beauty, noting that the designer dress she's wearing is fit for the eldest daughter of a top family. She timidly accepts Sun Yiming's compliment, sharing that she spent hours getting ready for this big, high-society mixer. Sun Yiming nods, adding that this Ye Clan event is the ultimate opportunity for the new generation to grow their business network. She smiles, thinking she needs to make a splash no matter what at the anniversary of the biggest underground casino in the whole state. Suddenly, whispers about the presence of the banished Qin heir catch Zhou Shuiman's attention as she hears talk of a massive high-stakes bet. Over at the gaming table, the dealer loudly announces that the mystery player just pulled in a whopping $2 million in chips. The Prota flashes a cynical grin as he raises his glass, asking in a mocking tone if the girl who just walked up happens to be his fiancée. She stands completely shocked seeing him, while the young man calmly remarks he was actually looking for someone to play around with. The other wealthy guests whisper with disgust, saying the broke kid ran out of options and came to test his luck at the underground casino. He flashes the gold card and sarcastically claims his starting buy-in was a generous sponsorship courtesy of his ex-fiancée. Young Sun Yiming asks if she knows him, and the girl quickly replies it's just some old family business of her dad's that she doesn't care about. She glares at the young man and snaps coldly, saying a high-class casino is no place for a broke loser like him. The rich guy steps up to defend her and publicly disses the Prota, calling him a shameless stray bugging a classy lady. The Prota calmly fixes his shirt collar and responds with a mysterious smirk that it's hard to say if she actually belongs to him. He holds up the envelope containing the engagement contract and proposes that if she wins the game, she takes all the chips plus the marriage paper. The Prota threatens to leak the document to the crowd if she refuses, forcing the girl to desperately take the bet to avoid a public scandal. She demands he disappear from her life if he loses, while the rich heir offers to roll in her place to teach the kid a lesson. The Prota accepts the challenge with open arms, suggesting a classic dice duel where whoever rolls the highest total wins. The rich guy smirks arrogantly, talking trash that the kid is digging his own grave trying to take him on at his own game. The crowd surrounding them murmurs excitedly, gossiping that the rich heir is a dice pro and that the poor kid is about to get embarrassed. Sun Yiming starts rattling the dice cup with flair beside his lady, declaring they're about to see who drops the bigger number. The Prota just lets out a quiet, sarcastic chuckle while he starts shaking his own dice cup without a single worry on his face. The dice cup slams down hard onto the felt, building sky-high anticipation among everyone in the room. Lifting his cup, the dice show a grand total of 26 points, a crazy high score that makes the crowd celebrate the rich guy's near-guaranteed win. The Prota lifts his cup with a smile, showing a perfect top score of 30, leaving the crowd blown away by his unreal luck. The dealer officially calls the Prota's win, leaving Sun Yiming and Zhou Shuiman totally floored by the sudden loss. The Prota leans back comfortably in his chair, surrounded by chips, teasing his ex-fiancée that she just lost the wager. The girl yells furiously that 2 million is nothing and demands a best of 3, insisted the guy just got lucky. The Prota agrees to keep playing, but suggests cranking up the stakes, putting up his own family house deed as a $6 million collateral. He shows the property deed, guaranteeing he'll sign it over on the spot if he loses, which leaves Zhou Shuiman suspicious of his motive. She recognizes the exact figure her father had secretly offered to buy out and take over the Prota's family property. The young man goes as far as inviting the crowd to bet against him if they're short on chips, driving many onlookers to call him insane and jump into the game. The high rollers throw massive piles of chips onto the felt, determined to wipe out the Prota's stash, believing he can't win forever. Sun Yiming shakes the dice cup aggressively, announcing that for this round the player with the lowest score takes the pot. He lifts the cup and shows off an incredible score of 7 points, making the room cheer at the super low roll and his guaranteed victory. The rich guy taunts that his rival is done for and will be picking through trash with his parents, but the young man calmly tells him to watch closely. The Prota slowly lifts his cup and asks who the real winner of this match is, revealing dice with an impossibly low score. To the ultimate dismay of the duo, the Prota's dice show a total of just 5 points, clutching the win once again by a hair. With a winning smile, the Prota mockingly asks if they're still not convinced and want to try a best of 5 or 7 series. Other wealthy players in the crowd start getting mad and demand to join in, unable to process how a poor kid keeps sweeping the board. Several rounds later, an absolute silence washes over the entire room, with his opponents looking totally crushed, pale, and speechlessly broken. The dealer, visibly sweating and trembling, officially announces the young man has won again, pulling in an unbelievable jackpot of 1 billion in chips. Sitting behind literal mountains of chips, the Prota mocks them, asking why everyone stopped laughing and if the big elite families ran out of cash. Sun Yiming stammers in disbelief over not securing a single round, while Zhou Shaman screams in rage, accusing the kid of straight-up cheating. The Prota gets ready to rake in his winnings, but the dealer nervously steps in, asking the young man to hold on a moment before leaving. The staffer informs him that the casino manager wants to meet him personally in the private VIP room, while several security guards surround the table. The Prota takes the invitation casually, asking them to start swapping his chips for cold, hard cash while he goes to chat with management. His rivals celebrate the security team stepping in, believing the Prota signed his own death warrant by daring to cheat on Ye family turf. The young man is escorted to a high-end luxury office, where the manager greets him coldly as he walks in. The manager, known as Long Wu, points at the files on his desk and coldly orders the kid to confess how he pulled off the rigged play. The Prota fires back that it was just beginner's luck, thinking to himself that even though he used energy to manipulate the dice, no one there can prove it. Long Wu scoffs at the kid's non-existent gambling history, questioning the nerve of a broke heir trying to pull a scam in his house. Wanting to skip the talk, the manager orders his armed goons to jump in and teach the arrogant kid a brutal lesson. The Prota leaks a bit of his blue energy, commenting with disappointment that this is a terrible way for an establishment to treat its guests. In another part of the venue, a man in a vest chats on the phone with his daughter, telling her to take care of her granddad at the hospital without worry. He hangs up holding a cigar, but his phone immediately starts ringing again with an urgent incoming call. The man, Yejizu, answers annoyed about being interrupted, but is shocked to hear his manager frantically screaming for help over the speaker. Bloodied and battered on the office floor, Longwu frantically warns that a monster intruder invaded the venue and took down all his men. A mysterious hand snatches the phone away from the fallen manager as Yejizu yells into the receiver, asking who had the nerve to do that. The Prota picks up the phone with a calm smirk, letting the big boss Yejizu know he's heading upstairs to talk business about his prize money. The young man walks casually through the outer courtyard, while the beat-up manager stumbles behind him in panic, warning him of the danger. The employee explains the Ye family is a military powerhouse dynasty and that the kid won't survive even if he begs on his knees. He smirks confidently, warning that no matter how tough the kid is, the big boss is surrounded by deadly elite bodyguards. The young man shrugs off the threat, thinking he just needs a powerful business partner and that those regular goons are an absolute joke. He warns that if the boss refuses the deal, he'll use force, making the manager laugh out loud at the kid's nerve to want the Ye clan as his underlings. He reflects quietly that despite the Ye family's shady side hustles, their public reputation and honors are miles above the Qin family's. The Prota recalls that in the past, the Ye clan never kicked him while he was down, concluding that having them as allies will make focusing on his training way easier. The manager holds back a laugh with pure condescension, unable to comprehend where a broke, abandoned heir gets that kind of wild confidence. Suddenly, a line of sharply dressed security guards carrying metal briefcases comes marching into the courtyard in crisp formation. Seeing his men arrive, Long Wu breathes a sigh of relief and yells orders at the newcomers to drop the cocky kid once and for all. However, to everyone's total shock, the elite guards bow down in deep respect, officially welcoming the young heir Qin. The manager stands wide-eyed and totally lost for words, seeing his own top operatives show that level of respect to a teenager. Yejizu comes running up and apologizes to the guest of honor for not greeting him sooner, explaining that prepping the cash caused the holdup. He presents $1 billion packed in metal briefcases and asks the Prota to verify his total payout from the bets. Manager Long Wu stands stunned, questioning the boss on why he's giving VIP treatment to a cast-off from the Qin family. Furious at the disrespect, Yejizu delivers a hard slap across his employee's face, screaming at him to shut his mouth instantly. The boss commands his men to drag the manager away to face harsh military discipline, stripping the man of his position on the spot. As the former manager is hauled off begging for mercy, Yejizu introduces himself to the Prota as the owner of Shanshui Manor. He apologizes for his men's actions and offers to grant any request the Prota has, who thanks him for taking him seriously. The Prota notes it's their first time meeting, but the executive reveals his own father already referred to him as the Ye family's great benefactor. The Prota gets curious about the revelation and asks about the businessman's father. Suddenly, a chopper appears in the sky making massive noise, and someone on board yells out in excitement upon spotting the kid. Xiaoxuan waves happily from inside the aircraft, cheering that she ran into the young guy again. The prota realizes the girl he bumped into this morning belongs to the Ye family, figuring out the old man beside her is a major figurehead. That happens to be Ye Kongjun, the grand patriarch of the Ye clan, and one of the highest-ranking top generals in the nation. Ye Jizu asks why his father left the hospital, but gets scolded by the elder for almost causing a massive disaster right there. The young man jokes about their fate crossing paths, while the general shares he was actually talking about him right before hearing about his casino visit. The elder offers a genuine apology for the earlier mix-up and expresses his family's strong desire to team up with the young man. Seeing her grandfather's respectful stance, Xiao Xuan bows her head in respect as well. The prota accepts the apology, thinking to himself that military folks know how to recognize real power, which makes things smoother. Pleased, Ye Jizu states it's an honor and offers to gift the entire Shanshui casino as a peace offering. The young man turns down the venue, but asks how he's supposed to haul all that cash out, and the executive promises he'll handle transport easily. Inside the main hall, Zhou Shuimin complains bitterly about how the prota ruined the mood, while Sun Yiming tries to comfort her sweetly. Sun Yiming promises they'll get a good laugh when security throws the kid out, but a guy shouts out warning that the prota is back. The young man walks back in totally scratch-free, flanked by manor bodyguards hauling heavy metal cases filled with cash. The young man orders the guards to load the cash into his car first, and they obey, addressing him respectfully as Sir. Hearing the high-level respect given by the elite guards, his rivals stand completely jaw-dropped, unable to make sense of anything. The prota approaches the stunned pair and mentions he collected his winnings, but came back just to drop off one final souvenir. Holding up the document, he mockingly regrets to inform her that the engagement contract no longer belongs to his supposed ex-fiancée. The reveal shocks everyone in the hall, who immediately start gossiping about the girl stepping out on him with the Sun family heir. Zhou Shuimin turns ghost white in panic as people whisper that her family only got rich thanks to the prota's dad. Right in front of the crowd, the prota rips up the official contract, loudly announcing the permanent cancellation of their engagement. He tosses cash into the air, inviting everyone present to celebrate with free drinks fully covered on his tab. Zhou Shuimin breaks down crying from the humiliation as people laugh, while Sun Yiming grips her arm furiously, feeling like he got played for his cash. She screams that the engagement meant nothing, but the heir snaps back that a woman dumped like that isn't worthy of standing beside him. The prota walks away from the scene with a smug grin, hoping they enjoy his special parting gift. The prota struts out victorious, thinking quietly to himself that the main act of his revenge story is just getting started. Later that evening at their humble home, the kid's father plans to cook up a nice meat dish for the next day's meal. His parents glance out the window and get confused seeing a super flashy luxury limo pull up right outside their simple house. A sharply dressed guy steps out of the imported ride, catching the attention of the prota's dad, who recognizes him right away on the street. The school principal shows up backed by his guy, claiming he skipped a major event just to handle the drama that went down. The principal complains he only kept the poor kid in school to set an example, annoyed by his nerve to fight back. He decides it's time to stop playing nice and give the kid a final lesson, now that the Chin family lost interest in him. However, as they approach the front door, the men run face-to-face with uniformed military officers standing guard right at the entrance. The officers in military attire stare down the newcomers with cold, imposing looks, completely blocking their path. Stunned by the unexpected presence of those high-level guards, the bullies take a step back, looking extremely tense. The principal whispers in confusion, asking if they got the wrong address, not understanding why military troops would guard a rundown place. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out from behind, catching the attention of both the principal and the inspector standing in the hallway. The prota comes walking up the stairs casually, mocking the unexpected visit from his two school superiors. The principal screams angrily upon seeing the kid, demanding he bring his parents out immediately so they can clear out of the school for good. He rants that the young man will pay for defying school authority, swearing he'll make him beg on his knees for mercy. Out of nowhere, the officers move fast, pinning the men to the floor, ignoring their desperate excuses about school guidelines. One of the military guys glares down at the intruders and asks the prota how he wants to handle these brainless fools. The officer tells the prota to just give the word, commenting that the bullies had the bad luck of popping up at the exact right time. Still pinned down, the inspector with glasses stands horrified, realizing the tight connection between the kid and the scary military force present. Even while held down, the principal yells in rage, asking if the prota really thinks teaming up with some street crew is enough to step to him. The principal brags about his high status and the weight of Jiangzhou backing him, but the prota simply commands the guards to let him loose. Thinking the kid got scared, the man smirks victoriously, saying it's way too late to regret his cocky attitude now. Without wasting a second on trash talk, the prota drops a heavy slap that sends the principal crashing straight onto the hallway floor. The inspector screams in absolute panic, seeing his brother-in-law get laid out so brutally right before his eyes. The Ye family soldiers watch the scene impressed, cheering on the young man's fearless, no-nonsense attitude. Down on the floor in sheer rage, the principal clutches his sore face, barely able to believe the prota had the nerve to lay hands on him again. The prota approaches with a cold look and kicks the attacker hard, shutting down any attempt to protest. The principal lets out a loud groan of pain, while the inspector beside him trembles in sheer terror at the violent shift in power. The young man calls the principal scum, calling him out for embezzlement, taking bribes, harassing teachers, and extorting students. He reveals he knows the man leaked videos of him getting humiliated in the past just to gain clout and suck up to the wealthy Chin family. The principal breaks into a cold sweat, completely terrified upon realizing his darkest dirt was fully exposed. Even backed into a corner, the man threatens to ruin him with a single phone call, but the prota mocks him, giving him a shot to ring his top allies. He grabs his phone thinking the kid is stupid, remembering that even the second young master of the powerful Ye clan attends the same school. The man rants that the Ye family will crush the kid like a bug, but the prota just smirks and glances behind him with a laugh. At that exact moment, Yejizu steps into the space holding a takeout box, leaving the bully in total shock seeing him there in the flesh. Absolutely furious over the lies, Yejizu yells at young Master Chin to completely ignore that fraud's nonsense. The principal and the inspector start shaking uncontrollably as they recognize the big boss, stuttering as they ask what he's doing in a rundown place like this. Yejizu clarifies that his relative only studies there for the academic setup, guaranteeing the clan has zero special ties with the school administration. Seeing the guards salute the big boss, the inspector finally connects the dots that every single military guy there is with the Ye clan. The principal drops to his knees, begging Chief Ye, asking why he'd care so much about a useless, cast-off kid. Yejizu coldly asks if the man has a death wish, but the prota comments that putting a quick end to him would be way too light of a punishment. Terrified with his soul practically leaving his body, the principal pathetically agrees with the young man's ruthless decision. The man collapses onto the floor, drained of strength, muttering in disbelief over how the kid scored the backing of one of the top power families. The inspector stares at the young man with eyes wide in terror, frantically asking what on earth he did to secure an alliance like that. The prota replies with complete chill that he just swung by the casino and made a quick buck, nothing special. Right after, the elite officers of the Ye family walk into the home, bringing several dishes of high-end gourmet food for the family. The prota's parents head back inside and stand wide-eyed seeing the dinner table packed with fancy banquets and luxury spreads. His dad asks what's going on, while Yejizu explains that those two men came personally to offer a proper apology. Crying in fear, the duo confesses they acted like cowards, begging for forgiveness over charging bogus fees and unfairly picking on the kid. His parents recall that money was meant for their son's education, and the principal begs for his life, blaming it on just following orders from above. Yejizu warns he holds receipts on all their crimes and guarantees justice will be served publicly as the two are hauled away. The prota reassures his parents saying they don't need to stress over the school anymore, and his dad celebrates the scum getting what they deserved. Right after, his dad turns to the prota and curiously asks how his business deals are coming along. The prota explains he secured enough capital thanks to the Ye clan's backing, and the executive highlights the strong bond now linking their families. The young man mentions he's going to step out for a quick private chat with the businessman, leaving his parents to enjoy the special feast set up for them. Outside, Yejizu confirms he already had every humiliating video wiped from social media, and the kid thanks his ally for the swift move. The prota hands over a vial of medicine, explaining the harvested herbs are enough to heal and save the patriarch of the Ye clan. The young man asks them to handle protecting his parents, and the executive accepts the crucial task with honor and pride. Shifting to a serious tone, Yejizu reveals that his family actually needs to ask a massive favor from the young cultivator as well. The kid tells him to shoot straight, and the ally explains that due to their military background, they clash often with high-level martial artists. The executive shares that years ago, during a major regional clash, they were nearly wiped out by a top-tier, highly dangerous mercenary. He's talking about the feared Lan Xiaosheng, who is rumored to have reached the Grandmaster Transformation realm, the absolute peak of fighters in the nation. Though they managed to banish him for 10 years back then, he holds a deadly grudge and is now waiting for a golden chance to take his revenge. The Prota concludes that's the real reason they wanted his help so badly, and Yejizu admits they view him as a true guardian deity. The ally bows, showing absolute respect for the young man's terrifying potential, placing his entire clan at his disposal. The Prota reaches out his hand with a genuine smile, admitting that, to be honest, he actually grew quite fond of the loyal Ye family. The Prota shakes Ye Jizu's hand, stating the feeling is mutual, while the businessman asks that they look out for each other moving forward. Later on in his room, the young man sits cross-legged on his bed, surrounded by a thick surge of blue energy to begin his cultivation session. Holding a talisman, he reflects that a transformation realm grandmaster on Earth would hardly find any opponents capable of matching him. The talisman starts burning in golden flames, and the kid admits that getting into this makes him a bit eager and pumped for the next steps. He watches the mystical golden fire dancing over his fingertips with total control and flawless precision. The Prota commands the fire to rise, making the mystical flames glow brightly around his bedroom. Even though the herbs lacked heavy spiritual energy, the large supply allowed him to forge a standard Peiwan pill after several attempts. The young man notes that the efficiency of the golden fire at this entry level is pretty low, concluding that refining top pills will take a long-term plan. He swallows the small glowing pill, thinking that even with his current low cultivation, the medicine will help refine his physical body. The Prota decides to utilize the Kangchong art, the best cultivation method for him to lay down his spiritual foundation. With a focused expression, he begins condensing all the absorbed spiritual energy directly inside his own body. He channels his entire focus into this internal process, aiming purely to temper and toughen his physical frame. The next day at the Ye family's luxury mansion, all the staff bow formally to pay respect and welcome the Prota inside. General Ye Kongjun greets the young man warmly, while the Prota returns the greeting, wishing everyone present a good morning. The elder celebrates, sharing that his doctor was blown away by the rapid recovery of his health, expressing immense gratitude to his young savior. The Prota explains the pill served to strengthen his core body, making it easier to perform the full treatment session scheduled for today. The family steps out of the room to grant privacy for the procedure, and Xiaoxuan sweetly asks the young man to take good care of her granddad. The Prota asks General Ye Kongjun to take a seat, while a spiky-haired kid checks him out with curiosity before walking out. The Prota locks his eyes on the guy in the red jacket heading out, recalling in his thoughts that he remembers him clearly. He channels his blue energy into the elder's back, remembering that this young heir was the only wealthy kid who extended a hand to him in the past. In his memories of the past, two bullies were jumping him violently with punches and kicks under a heavy downpour in the schoolyard. While the Prota was suffering down in the dirt, heir Ye Haoxuan came sprinting up, shouting angrily to stop the cowardly beating. The bully leader, He Howlin, tried to make excuses, claiming the kid scuffed his new kicks and didn't have the cash to pay up. The attacker demanded the Prota drop to his knees, but Ye Haoxuan stepped in, offering to cover the shoes to put an end to the humiliation. However, terrified and lacking the strength to fight back, the old Prota ended up dropping to his knees on the wet ground right before everyone. Ye Haoxuan yelled at him to have some self-respect, but the cast-off kid just begged him to stop helping, stating he wouldn't always be around. He vented that whenever the heir wasn't there, the beatings would just hit twice as hard, while the others laughed, calling him a spineless outcast. Ye Haoxuan questioned if giving in solved anything, but the kid fired back that he possessed zero strength or power to resist. Hearing the painful response from the helpless kid, Ye Haoxuan fell into complete silence with a look of deep frustration. The heir turned around and walked off, coldly stating that those who don't even try to save themselves don't deserve help from anyone. Back in the present, the Prota reflects that he acted that way back then out of fear of dragging his humble parents into the mess. He recalls that they weren't even in the same class and that after that rainy day, they never crossed paths at school again. The Prota locks back into his healing work, thinking quietly that he never imagined crossing paths with heir Ye Haoxuan like this again. The powerful spiritual energy flows with pinpoint accuracy through every artery and vital point of the general's weak body. The general stands up hyped, stating he feels decades younger thanks to that truly miraculous treatment. The Prota passes over more pills to strengthen his other relatives, mentioning with a smile that he feels a strong connection with their clan. Xiaoxuan hugs her grandfather, crying out of relief, while the spiky-haired guy asks in shock if the elder was really cured that fast. Ye Jizu gives deep thanks, guaranteeing the clan will never forget such immense kindness, but the young man says he'll still need their backing. The executive tells him to just name it, and the kid reveals he needs to locate a spot with a high density of spiritual energy. The kid drops a list of 5 extremely rare, crucial herbs that the Ye family needs to track down immediately before other groups get to them. The Prota states he's heading back to school to keep his parents happy, and Yejizu promises to keep his heavenly powers a top secret. He mentions the school board was completely swapped out with allies, asking if the young man would like a celebration party thrown for him. The young man looks surprised by the offer, while the executive adds that plenty of students and teachers want to figure out who the hero is that saved them. The Prota prefers to skip the hero party, but suggests running some chill casual events to unwind a bit over at the school. The following day, a massive banner announces the official kickoff of No. 7 High School's Spring Sports Festival. The students chat surprised over how much energy sports events gained, since the school used to focus strictly on grades before. They praise the new board for dropping a fortune on the event, unaware that the sudden shift in plans happened by direct order of the Prota. The Prota stretches on the track, realizing his cultivation pushed so far that he managed to condense the hell-suppressing physique. While the young man plans his next moves to harvest more spiritual energy, Xiaoshuan comes walking up with Ye Haoxuan and calls out to him. She reveals they got transferred to the exact same class and asks him to look out for her, noting quietly to herself that the guy looks way hotter. The Prota takes the request with a chill smile, as the loudspeaker announces the official start of the school sports festival. Walking side by side on the field, the Prota notices Ye Haoxuan's hesitation and asks if his classmate has something to ask him. Ye Haoxuan asks if he really laid out the casino goons and Uncle Wang, and the Prota suggests his classmate check it out with his own eyes. The starter pistol fires off a shot to officially kick off the track competitions out in the yard. The Prota crosses the finish line in first place with unreal speed, leaving his rivals and the crowd totally speechless. Over on the tennis court, the Prota smashes the ball back so hard that the impact cracks the pavement, leaving his opponent totally terrified. Right after, the long jump event kicks off, where the young man preps to pull off an unbelievable leap onto the sand. The judges measure the mark and yell in shock, realizing the young jumper just shattered the world record for the category. In the basketball game, the Prota executes a violent slam dunk that completely shatters the rim and glass backboard. Holding the broken rim in his hand, he looks at the damage, realizing he needs to control his massive strength a bit better. The crowd goes wild over the insane flexes of power, and Xiaoshuan cheers hype from the bleachers alongside her granddad. While cheering in the stands, Xiaoshuan notices a mysterious, shady figure standing up top at a distance, watching them closely. A suspicious guy speaks into a radio, confirming security was checked and ordering his crew to get ready to initiate the hit. The festival moves over to the school pool, where swimmers dive in to see who is the fastest competitor in the event. The Prota sweeps the win again with ease, stepping out of the pool as the speakers call out another gold medal added to his run. The girls in the stands blush hard, screaming in awe over the young man's crazy, shredded, and attractive physique. Xiaojuan huffs annoyed at the screaming fangirls, but Yejizu comments with a smile that the kid seems to be having a blast. The general agrees, reflecting that the young man is way too bright of a talent to stay boxed up in a small, basic spot like that school. Ye Haoxuan pulls up gassed at the edge of the pool, asking what kind of monster the Prota is, getting a nice compliment back in return. The Prota boosts his classmate, mentioning that among regular people, his performance and physical skill are top tier and impressive. Intrigued by that level of power, his classmate asks why he used to let people step on him before, questioning if he's really the same Chin fan. The heir explains that the guy seems to have turned into a whole different person, and the Prota readies a mysterious response. The Prota stares at his friend dead serious, saying he can consider him as a Chin fan who literally just crawled back straight out of hell. The Prota helps his friend out of the water, as a bunch of girls come sprinting up to congratulate him on another massive win. A swarm of female students surrounds the duo by the pool edge, begging to be the guy's friend and gushing over his crazy good looks. Up in the stands, guys gossip in shock after finding out the cast-off kid pulled in $1 billion at the casino and holds tight links to the Ye family. The fangirls crowd Ye Haoxuan as well, asking if he's tight with the Prota and commenting on how fire of a duo they make together. They invite the guys out to grab lunch together, leaving the pair completely squished in the middle of that noisy crowd of fangirls. The two guys try in vain to dodge the circle, but keep getting squeezed and pulled by the hyped students at the edge of the pool. Seeing no way out of that suffocating setup, the duo spots an opening to sprint out of there as fast as possible to ditch the crowd. The girls whine over the guys dipping, while Xiaoshuan watches the whole chaotic mess arms crossed with a super annoyed look. Xiaoshuan complains that they scared the guy off and ruined her lunch invite, making the elder laugh at his granddaughter's hype energy. Yejizu takes a serious tone, warning that anyone who dares mess with that peace and threaten the young man's safety is set to fall hard. Meanwhile, a shady, hostile guy keeps eyes on Xiaoshuan's moves from the top stairs, locking his focus entirely on the clan heiress. A crew of armed intruders runs through the school hallway after getting confirmation that the main target entered a room on the second floor. They kick the classroom door open aggressively with arrogant smirks, convinced they'd find the target cornered with 0 easy exits. The Prota and his buddy were inside changing clothes, and the young man comments that the fangirls would have been way tougher to deal with than them. The intruders lock the door, planning to drop the extra kid and bag young Master Ye, but the Prota finds that level of cockiness super boring. Heavy thumping sounds and desperate screams echo from inside the locked room, followed by muffled crashes against the wooden door. The Prota opens the door casually after laying the men out cold, and Ye Haoxuan praises his friend's skills, admitting he can't match his power. Young Master Qin catches that there are tons of enemies scattered around the school, and Ye Haoxuan rings Uncle Wang to greenlight the counterstrike. Out in the courtyard, students walk around casually with 0 clue that a massive safety operation is going down right in the hallways. Inside the school cafeteria, another goon secretly tracks Xiaoshuan's moves while she eats lunch solo at a table. The young heiress finishes her meal lost in thought, wondering where the Prota dipped to after running from the pool crowd. She blushes slightly, remembering the image of the young swimmer's built physique, noting how much stronger he seems since their first run-in. She shakes her head to clear her head, focusing on the plan that she needs to lock in a solid friendship with her granddad's great savior. She pulls out her phone to ring her cousin, figuring he must be hanging with the Prota somewhere around the campus. The scout alerts his crew over the radio that the girl is solo and gears up to jump her, but finds the silence from his buddies super weird. An imposing shadow pops up out of nowhere right behind the goon, making him shake in terror as he catches the threatening presence at his back. Without giving the intruder time to react or call for help, the mystery figure disarms him instantly and drops him to the floor with a precise strike. The scene cuts to the empty, quiet court inside the school gym, which becomes the new stage for what's about to go down. Hidden away, the enemy leader watches General Ye Kongjun flanked by his guards, silently mocking the old patriarch's advanced age. Zhan Long, a fighter at the peak of the Anjin stage, steps out mocking the general for wasting time with that kind of childish play. Ye Jisoo asks if Grandmaster Lan Xiaosheng sent him before the 10-year ban was up, but the intruder scoffs, asking if they're already running scared. The mercenary recalls with heavy bitterness that his master was beaten and booted out of the country back then, promising he'll now collect that debt slowly. Annoyed, Ye Jisoo fires back, calling them traitorous stray dogs who shouldn't even have the right to set foot on this soil ever again. Zhan Long answers coldly that he only works for cash and would serve any country willing to throw top dollar for his skills. Suddenly, the red scope lens of a precision sniper rifle makes a faint click sound pointing dead straight at the group. Red laser dots paint the chest of Zhan Long and his goons as General Ye Kongjun asks if stray dogs really think they can act cocky. The elder patriarch stands arms crossed with absolute dominance, stating firmly that the nation of Huaxia is fully guarded by the Ye clan. The mercenary smirks and holds up a comms radio, warning that since they're in a school packed with students, everyone there acts as a hostage. He boasts that his planted goons can drop anyone on his call at any second, including the Ye family's own heirs. Instead of dropping into a panic, Executive Ye Jisoo keeps a totally ice-cold stance, takes a hit from his cigar, and dares the enemy to try the move. Zhan Long attempts to drop the hit order over the radio to prove his point, but gets confused hearing pure dead silence on the comms unit. He panics hearing a totally unknown, mystery voice answering back over his men's radio channel. The Prota walks casually into the sports gym, dragging his feet, commenting over the radio that only the main final boss of the whole mercenary crew is left standing. Jacket unbuttoned, flexing his shredded physique, the Prota greets him over the comms, leaving the mercenary totally lost over his crazy nerve. A goon comes running up frantic, warning they lost contact with all other squads, leaving the leader clueless on how they got wiped so fast. Ye Jisoo reveals they knew about their breach since the border and set up that trap on purpose for an even bigger reason. The Prota disses them, saying it was light work tracking everyone down since they're martial artists, while his workout buddy comes running up winded right behind him. Zhan Long stands completely shocked, realizing a simple high school kid was the one who tracked down and wiped out his entire elite force. Wrapped in a surge of blue energy aura, the Prota warns that the warm-up is officially over, asking the enemy if he'll actually manage to entertain him in this fight. Like and comment if you want the next part.